Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Friday Masterclass, where today we're going to be looking at how to basically create and prep videos for social media distribution. A lot of words there. To say a really simple thing, you shoot some video and you want to share it, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or Vimeo or TikTok or wherever. Well, we make it pretty easy inside of Premiere Pro to do all of that, but there's a lot of little things that you can do to just sort of enhance, make the color a little better, make the sound a little better, add some really quick titles if that's kind of your thing. And then of course also use some of our cooler AI-based technologies like auto reframe to take something that was shot widescreen and automatically convert it really nicely to a vertical or a square aspect ratio, all the while following the motion in your video. Now, I'd also planned on showcasing a couple of things in Adobe Express using some video actions, which we didn't get to in their entirety on the last stream. We'll see apparently Express today online. At the moment, there's something going on there, so I don't know if I'll be able to access it. We will see. That's going to come towards the end anyway. So as always, coming to you live on YouTube and a couple other places, so thank you so much for joining. See, we've got Steve and Umacorn and Gino and Oliver and Tim and Reverb Mike and Polk Music. Nice to see you all. Thanks for being here. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to get right into it here. I'm going to switch over to Premiere Pro and let's go for it. So kind of starting here right at the beginning. Again, some of this will be, repeat information for some of you. Some of this might be new. If you haven't used or imported stuff into Premiere in the last couple of months, this import dialog may look a little bit new to you. In any case, much like many, if not all of, well, yeah, I guess almost all of the CC design and video apps, we now have some really common menu bar tools like the home button. And if we go back home, this would bring us back to the first screen, the intro screen, startup screen when you start up Premiere Pro. So let's say that you've shot some footage on your phone and you want to just kind of put it into Premiere. You're going to do some kind of editing, whatever it is, and then you want to export that. Okay, so you'd start with New Project, the blue New Project button right up here, and that ultimately is going to take you to this import screen. Now, again, if you've used Rush before, this might look really familiar. What's nice is this allows you to navigate to anywhere on your drive or any connected drives very quickly. You can see here I'm hover scrubbing over the footage so I can see exactly what it is that I'm looking at here. This was some of the stuff that I prepared for us last time. And then I can very easily select that content. And as I do that, it starts to build a little mini timeline down below. So if the idea is that you want to stick all of this content into a sequence, into a timeline altogether, or you can't even see it because my head is blocking it down below. So as I selected those clips, it's kind of showing me in sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, in the order that I selected them, how they're going to appear at the bottom of the bin down there, okay? Now, in this case, I don't want to stack a bunch of them. I just wanted to take this little vertical clip that I shot this morning and put that into a sequence. Now, you can do this all in one step. So why am I bothering to tell you this? Well, if you just simply import the footage, and here's our little blue import button down here, then what's going to have to happen is it's going to bring it into Premiere, and then you have to make a sequence from that. Now, it's very simple. I've shown that a million times. There's a right-click, control-click functionality. Create sequence from new clip. Now this is the best way to do it because it's going to take all of the attributes of that clip, which in this case is a vertical 9:16 aspect ratio, and it's automatically going to make a sequence, a timeline for you with all the proper attributes. So it'll be vertical, it'll be, in this case, I think I shot this 24 frames per second. This is also 4K but flipped, so it's 2160 by 3840. It knows what to do and it does everything correctly. However, in this new import window, dialog, panel thing, you can, from here, tell it to create the sequence for you simply by enabling that functionality up in Create New Sequence. So I'm going to type vertical social vid for the name of the sequence here. And by the way, if you're using multiple clips, or even one, you can have them all placed in a bin and give that bin a name. So maybe these are, clips for social, or you can do it by date. Some people like to do that. You can also copy the media and if it's coming off an external drive or a card or something like that. So a lot of functionality, again, if you've used Prelude in the past, or some of the functionality, I should say, kind of similar, works similarly to that. But the idea here is that I've got my vertical video. I just want to create a timeline and just start going. I say create new sequence. I give it a name. I select my footage. I click import, and it does it. And you'll see here, we've got our timeline here, vertical social vid. Here's the video. All right, this is just me, again, earlier this morning, just kind of scrolling around in my chair. Okay, and that's it, real simple. Now, at this point, again, we can start editing, we can start doing whatever. Again, you'll note that this is in a vertical aspect ratio, and you know that because there's no black on either side or the top or bottom of the video. So this sequence is perfectly formatted to the format in the way that this was shot. Now, one of the things that we heard from a lot of our users over the last couple of years is that while you can, of course, resize all of these windows and panels to make this look better, if you work with video, vertical in particular in Premiere, using like a standard widescreen workspace. So here's here's what I would normally use for a widescreen, right, where the video fills the frame. If you're like me, this just bothers me because there's all that gray space. Now, yes, I can fill the sides with other panels and shrink it and do all of that. Well, we heard you, though. Maybe you don't want to do that. So we actually created a new vertical workspace. So this is just specific to working with vertical. Now, you can use this for anything. It doesn't have to be vertical. But we've just kind of designed it to kind of flow and feel and work a little bit more intuitively when dealing with vertical video. So if we go to the Workspaces menu up at the top in the Window menu here, right there at the bottom, you will see vertical. Let's go ahead and choose that. And it just automatically reflows. And very nicely, you have now a nice sort of full panel view of the vertical video. I'm looking very serious there. Okay. Now, normally the timeline at the bottom here would be the full length of that section. Of course, because my camera is there, I shrunk it intentionally. But again, this just kind of gives you, it's just optimizing the screen real estate. You've got your audio track mixer here, so you can deal with audio. Again, you have your project panel automatically docked. Effects, I think libraries is actually there by default, okay? And then we have some of the essential controls. So effects controls are here, right? So if we want to adjust position or scale or any of those things, or when adding effects, they'll appear in here. Access to Lumetri Color directly from here. Access to the essential graphics panel. The text panel for doing any kind of transcription. Now, this is particularly useful, right? Because if we want to transcribe or do something like this, which we're going to do a little bit later, this allows us to add those captions right to the vertical video, right? Now, I know some services allow you to caption after upload. Don't forget that if you're making video for social or just to share, burn in your captions ahead of time. And then you don't have to worry about that. And then you can customize and design them however you like. So we're going to show this a little bit later on another video here. This one doesn't have any sound. I was just, it's quiet time this morning when I shot this. So, but that you have access to that here, okay? And then you have your source panel. So this is just a really easy way to, again, shoot with content, shoot with footage, bring it in via the import dialog, import panel, automatically create the sequence, and then switch to the vertical workspace, and everything just kind of works and flows the way that you want. Now, when it comes time to, you've done your edit, you've done whatever to it, you want to export, okay? Up at the top again, and even I need to, I have to get used to clicking there because I still want to do either Command M or, file export, which still works, but ultimately it takes you here. So again, if you haven't used Premiere in a while, it used to be this sort of separate modal dialog for export. Now this is where it takes you. All the same functionality is still here. It's just visually modified to look a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, a little bit more modern. So again, up at the side here under source, now this is specific to social networks, right? You can publish directly. So if you are logged in to, say, YouTube and you wanted to publish this as a short or whatever, if I turn on YouTube, you can see I'm actually already signed in. I can choose playlist, I can, privacy settings, all of that. And that goes for all of these other networks that are supported here. So you can upload, deploy directly to any of the aforementioned sources here after the export occurs. That's up to you. To be honest, I don't use this so much anymore. There was a period where I was like really into it. For whatever reason, I don't know. I just don't. That's up to you. But you can, and they all work, and it's fine. Now, outside of that, if we just go to Media File, let's talk about, again, export settings. So obviously we have a vertical video here. So this preset, high quality 1080p, if I look at this, the frame size here is 1920 1080. That's incorrect, right? Because this is 1080. That's the wrong aspect ratio. That's a 16:9. So one of the things that I just like to highlight here is, now that just happens to be the top preset that's there, in particular for social. Now, generally I don't go with like these sort of specific presets here, but match source, low, medium, and high, these are great. These are great for creating social content. And I can't tell you file size wise how big these are going to be. It's going to be dependent on how long your video is. But ultimately, if you choose a lower bitrate match source, first of all, it's going to maintain the correct frame size. So immediately you can see here that it's the correct aspect ratio, right? So it's not 16:9, which was the default preset. You could tell that because, again, there's no black. Remember, when we saw that original preset here, you might have thought, oh, it's so clean, it's nice, there's black on the sides. Yeah, because it was going to export this in the wrong aspect ratio. All right. So this is one of those little sort of frustrating gotchas. I don't know why it doesn't quite detect automatically what that should be. Now, having said that, I could still use this high quality preset, and by twirling down the video section here, I can simply come into the frame size option here, and I can modify this myself. And again, even by just clicking that, it automatically put this into it obviously realized that was vertical. But so I could do, 1080, 1920. Whoops, not whatever that huge number was. Oh gosh, zoomed in here, sorry. 1920. Okay. I don't know why that just went 1096. What? Okay. Oh, I see, because it's locked. Sorry, my bad. All right, so we could modify it that way, and then you'll see that those black bars go away. That's kind of the indicator that you're in the wrong aspect ratio. If you see letterboxing or pillar boxing in this view on your video, it's not in the right aspect ratio. All right, so you can break away, you can customize any of those presets. For my money though, I love match source. They're great. Now, here's the thing. Down below, it's going to tell you all of the output settings. Okay, and it'll estimate the file size, so 33 megs for this 14-second video. All right. Now here's the thing: it's still maintaining 4K vertical. I don't really need that for social, so this would be an opportunity where I would probably come in here, I'd lock this aspect ratio, and maybe I even do 720p, right, or 720 by 1280. Again, it's going on Twitter or something. It doesn't have to be 4K. Maybe you don't want to use 720 by 1280. Use 1080 by 1920, whatever. It doesn't need to be 4K is what I'm trying to get at here. So you can still customize any of these various attributes. By the way, if you click More, this now gives you access to all of the other attributes that you would have previously seen in the export modal dialog, right? So everything else is still here. You still have access to all of these things. You can still make all those changes. If you want to make changes to the bit rate, so currently this preset has it set to around 18 megabits per second. For an HD video, that's way more than you need, right? And especially if it's going on social. So even for something that's like 1080, 1080 by 1920, I'd probably say 5. And certainly if you're not going to go in 4K, nothing more than 8. And let's see, did it automatically change? Yeah, so look at that. We took our file size down from 33 down to 9 megs. Now, we don't really care about file size so much anymore. In general, I mean, if you're on a very slow web connection, yes, that can be problematic. But you can just see by adjusting the bit rate there, huge difference. And again, for something that's 720 by 1280, 5 megabits is absolutely, I mean, it'll look just as it did in its native vertical 4K, just smaller. There won't be any sort of perceived quality loss. And it's VBR, variable bitrate as well, so it'll take advantage of, it might be 3.5 megabits for a moment. It might even go as high as, 5.5 for a moment. But ultimately it's going to look pretty much the same, okay? So just kind of revealing how you can still modify those settings. Of course, you can also do 2-pass VBR and constant bitrate if that's your jam. Some people, I still talk to some and they're like, oh no, CBR all the way. So I just put it up to around just about 7, and now we're at about 13 megs. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's going to Twitter or TikTok necessarily. I'm constantly amazed, in fact, by most of the social video posts how, they're not, I wouldn't say they're high quality necessarily. If you're doing a movie trailer, maybe you up it a bit. But again, depending upon the frame size, unless you're doing a 4K export, you just don't need more than 10 megabits at all for an export. You really don't. Do it if you want. People watching it on a phone, they're not going to perceive a great deal of difference. Now, one of the things here that I might change, depending upon what the audio content here, is that this particular remember we started with this match source low bit rate, is that it also uses a low bitrate audio preset, 128 kilobits. So this is, for those of you old enough to remember, this is like iTunes audio files Mach 1. 128 kilobit, even for voice. If it's really cleanly recorded, okay. I'm just thinking of the sort of in the car, the TikTok crowd who do it in the bathroom. You're going to hear a lot of like swishy, swirly artifacting. Swishy, swirly artifacting at 128 kilobits. I hate that. So you can change that too. So here I just twirled up video, twirled down audio. We'll keep it all AAC. Now, again, this was originally at 48K. All networks now support 48. You don't have to go to 44.1. That's kind of making it, sort of, again, iTunes CD standard. Doesn't have to be. Keep it stereo. That's fine. But I don't care what it is, 256, right? As I mentioned, we can drop that video bitrate way down if we're still in kind of HD, 5 to 8 megabits, 5 to 10. It's going to look good. It's going to look presentable, okay? Unless you've got some crazy gradiated, shadow detail that you're trying to preserve, okay, up it. But in general, 5 to 8 megabits, you're going to be okay. You should always be at 256 for for the sound to appear the same way it did in that original. You can go a little lower. You could do, 212 is the next marker, 224, even 192. But you go below 192, it just sounds crummy. And again, if you're doing something outside where there's noise and wind, or you're in the car or in the kitchen or bathroom, you're just going to get those weird swishy, swirly, I'm in a tin can kind of artifacts, and that takes me out of a video immediately. So that's the only thing I'd recommend changing. That, as you can see, by going from 128 to 256, so doubling the audio bit rate, didn't affect our file size at all. And that's the point, is that the preset in trying to be a good citizen lowers the audio bit rate, but as all video nerds know, audio is it's such a small contributor to the overall file size of videos, particularly HD 4K videos. It doesn't pay to go cheap on your audio bitrate. All right, that's just not me saying it as an audio person, but that's a fact, Jack. It just doesn't change the file size significantly. Yes, if it's very long, you may see a slight change. It's not going to be significant. It's not like going from 4K down to 720p or 18 megabits down to 5. It's not. You're not going to see a difference. Okay. Even if we did 320, let's see if it even goes up or 512. Hey, really? Okay. Let's see what that does. Nothing. Right? So, lesson there, don't go cheap on your audio. You met Swishy Swirly Artie once. Nice guy. You're very funny. Okay. What's up, Taria? Hi, Cody. Nice to see you all. Okay. If people would just stay in the middle of the frame. Yes. Oh, hey. PJ Gaudier. Nice to see you. Okay, so that's that's vertical. All right, let's go back here. And let's go switch this back to my other workspace. And let's go to this one here. Okay. So again, just because I just didn't feel like finding footage this morning, so it's like half in focus. I just turned the iPhone on and was just doing something. So here, this is there's some audio in this. I don't know that it's significant, but it's just me in the back of the studio here, just kind of walking around. So just take a look here for a second. This is going to be an auto reframe test. I don't know why I'm doing that with my arms. Genius. Okay. So why am I doing this? Why am I moving around strangely like that? Okay. So we just talked about vertical video. Now, again, love it, hate it, whatever. Most of our socially shared things and the ones that are really getting those engagement numbers, obviously are vertical, whether you're talking about Reels or you're talking about Shorts, or you're talking about TikTok. And again, you could do this with anything, but I'm just going to use vertical as an example here just because. So I could publish this video as is, right? But that sucks because, one, I'm moving around, not a lot, but I'm moving. There's nothing happening there. And if I'm watching this on a phone, it just looks stupid. It looks like, well, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you do zoom in or something, right? So we can use some AI-based machine learning techniques in Premiere called auto reframe to, in a single click, automatically not only change the aspect ratio of this, but follow the motion as I move through the frame, almost as if the camera itself was moving. So let's go ahead and do that. So over here in my project panel, I'm just going to switch to list view here. So this is my auto reframe sequence. So up at the top here, I've got my sequence, auto reframe. And easiest way to do this is to simply right-click, control-click on the sequence. And we're going to choose to auto reframe the sequence. Now, before anybody asks here, by the way, you can auto reframe multiple clips at the same time in a sequence. So this sequence only has one clip. If there were 80, 1,000, 200 clips in here, I could still auto reframe the sequence, and then based on the settings that I choose, it's going to do all that work for me. Okay? So it's great, and it's gotten better over time. I think we premiered this in 2019. 3 years later, it's even more powerful. Okay, so first things first here, it pulls up a little dialogue. Sequence name. So let's call this social vid vertical. Give it just a name, okay? Target aspect ratio. So again, by default, we give you, 4 options here. Square, vertical 4:5, 9:16, horizontal 16:9, or custom. So if you have a specific aspect ratio that you want to conform this to, you can do that right here. Real nice. We don't need a custom one. We're going to do vertical 9:16. So nothing's going to change. Motion tracking. Now, again, based on the movement that you're trying to reframe against, you can choose whether, and you can tell it, and this is based on the results. So you basically need to run it first before you change this. You could change it ahead of time. I almost never take it off the default because I'm not usually doing stuff that has extreme fast motion or slow motion. But for things with slower motion, if you just want sort of the moves, the reframed camera moves to be a little more accurate, you may want to choose slower motion. And the reverse of that, you're doing downhill skiing or something, faster motion, choose that. I always just say, give the default a shot, see what it does. Now there's some stuff around here around clip nesting. Again, for most edits, you're probably not gonna have to worry about this. Maybe you're doing a multicam or something like that, or you're working with stuff that's already been nested, or you don't want it to do any nesting at all if it's doing anything in particular with multiple clips in the sequence. So it's just telling you have the option. The default is don't nest any clips. It's going to replace current motion adjustments. So maybe I already did some camera moves on this in advance or did something else. It's going to wipe all that away. Now I can add stuff back in after the fact, but the reframe itself is going to apply basically a new motion path to this footage. So by not nesting, it's erasing all that. If you say nest, it'll keep any motion adjustments that you made, but it'll remove transitions, okay? So sometimes maybe you've already scaled something up. Here's an example, right? So it's motion adjustments, anything in the motion, I can't get to it now because this is modal, I'll show you in a second. The motion section of the effects controls, right? So you've adjusted, a position, scale, rotation. If you want to preserve any of that before you do the reframe, then you want it to nest, all right? That's all. I didn't do any of that, so we're just going to go with the default. Click create. Okay. And you saw first the camera was kind of off to the side, wasn't very precise, and then it clicked back into place. Now this is only, 17 seconds or so. It took like 2.5 seconds to process. All right, so give it a second. If you immediately hit play and the first clip is sort of like the camera moved, but it doesn't look right, it's probably still processing. How do you know? Again, if you go up to effects controls, this is where you will see that auto reframe has been applied, all right? And again, if we had had any motion up here, this is where you would see that, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm just gonna mute this and see how it did, right? And you're seeing it's following. Now, I can't do much with my hands. I was like, duh, don't do your hands like that. That's why I pulled them in. Quite brilliant. Look, it's moving all over. It even has a little bit of temporal interpolation, like it kind of slides into position. And I think that's some of what we changed in the previous version, which is really nice. I really love that. Okay. So good. And now we've got a vertical version of this to share that is properly reframed, okay? And you can do multiple versions of this. Notice the original, which is here, is still there, remains untouched. And if we go back to the project panel, you'll see that it will have created a folder, auto reframed sequences, because it's not uncommon, right, to take the same video here, and let's do another one. And, maybe for this, if anyone's still making square videos, I just saw one, a couple today actually on what is it? Instagram. Social square. That is not a comment. Click create. Okay. Does its thing. Right, we saw it kind of readjust. And same thing here. Now this one, this will much better preserve my wide hands there.
An auto reframe test.
Same thing, right? Doing some nice motion there. Mel D, so cool. Yes. So yeah, so you don't even have to duplicate the original sequence. It's doing that for you. And again, it keeps them as separate reframed sequences right here, okay? So it's just a really fun, neat, fast, effective way to do that. You'll also note that in doing so, you see here, it maintained the 2160 height, right? Social squares. This is a pretty big video. So again, we may have wanted to have shrunken this down. And of course, we don't have to shrink it down here. We can shrink it in export, right? But that's the idea, is that by doing so, it's readjusting that differently. So you have a lot of flexibility when you go to export, as we just showed you. But I love that feature. It's been in Premiere, like I said, a couple years, and it just works great. The hands, I know. What was I doing? Why was I playing the keyboard in reverse, but I wasn't even touching it. I don't know what I was doing there, or what I was going for. Okay, it was early. My hair was still wet. Okay, all right. Now on to this one. Oh my gosh, I just look so tired. So this one has some sound. So now this is where we're going to get into doing a little bit of that, captioning and auto transcription thing. So let's take a quick listen and look at this one.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social. Maybe doing a little color correction. Maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind. Maybe auto reframing. Maybe even adding a little lower third title. Now, the one thing I neglected to say there, because I was tired and dopey, was what about captioning? Because that's what I wanted to do with this one.
So this is a great example of where we can do captioning, we can add lower thirds, we have a lot of options here, okay? So let's talk about captioning, right? So this is one of the great features that we added. I think we premiered this in 2020. It released in 2021. It's just gotten better and better. And there's a new feature, by the way, for those of you using the Premiere Pro beta, if you haven't tried it already. So this is what we refer to, you've probably seen it in some of our marketing, and I've talked about it on stream before, as speech to text. So it'll take spoken word and convert that into text, into a transcript, by simply clicking on transcribe sequence, which we're going to do right here. In the beta right now, we have something called edit to text or text to edit. You can edit via the script. Actual editing, not just editing the transcript. You can edit via the script itself. It's in beta. It's very cool. We'd love your feedback. Check out the Premiere Pro beta. Okay, so how do we do this? Super easy. Click on Create Transcript. Go into Language. Choose your language and download your language packs if they're not already downloaded. And we have quite a few now. Again, this list has been broadened in the last couple of years. All right. Audio analysis. Audio clips tagged as dialogue or audio on the track. So this is referring to if I was using the Essential Sound panel, which we're going to use in just a moment here to improve the sound, because I've already tagged this footage, this audio clip in the timeline as dialogue, it can use specifically that. So it'll avoid, in other words, anything that's tagged as sound effects or anything that's not tagged dialogue or anything that's tagged as ambient. In this case, I'm just going to do audio on the track. There's only one track of audio here, okay? And you can choose audio one or a mix. It doesn't matter. The default is mixed. That's fine. If we had in to out points, you note that you can transcribe in to out. Merge output with existing transcription. We don't have that. That's why that's great. Recognize when different speakers are talking. Now, normally, if you have multiples, it will separate them for you. So that's a really nice function of this feature here. It's just me. So go ahead and click transcribe. You'll see that it's rendering the audio data. Now, I believe now that this is processing on device. It is transcribing on device, and that's it. And there it is. So now when I play this, let's go ahead and just shuttle. And by the way, as I click on words, you'll note that it's shuttling the timeline along. So this is first allowing us to verify the transcript. So and it's going to highlight, this is like the old bouncing ball sing-along videos from your childhood. So let's take a quick look and listen here.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social, maybe doing a little color correction, maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind, maybe auto reframing, maybe even adding a little lower third title.
Now, I realize that wasn't me, I'm not reading Jabberwocky here, so it didn't exactly have, "'twas brillig and slithy toves" language to transcribe here. Slithy? I can't remember. Perfect transcription. Is it always going to be perfect? No, probably not. I can tell you, though, having used this so many times over the last couple of years, it's shockingly good. I mean, it's really, really good. And of course, that tech has just gotten better. We know this, from just voice command in general. Go back 5 years ago, it was rough. It's really good. Now, if we needed to edit something, again, I can come in here, I can change the transcript. The idea here is that this is first allowing us to see how it did so that we can make edits. Once we've done that, then we're simply going to click on Create Captions up here, all right, which now brings us to another dialog where we get to make some choices, some options here. So create from the sequence transcript, yes. Caption preset, subtitle default. Again, you'll see these are some sort of broadcast defaults in there. You won't need that for your socials. Subtitle format, again, use that as the default. Style. Now, if you have text styles already created in this project, you can access them. I didn't import any, so that's why nothing is showing up. Again, we're going to go with the defaults here for max length and characters, duration, gaps, and then we can choose whether we want single line or double line. Let's go with single line, all right, and go ahead and create. single line just because I'm not saying a lot, so it'll just kind of populate more on screen. Like that. Creates the captions. Boom. We're done. And just as with before, now you'll see that as I click through the different caption blocks, note the cursor down below is moving, and note the individual blocks themselves contain the text as well. All right? So we can just play a couple seconds of this.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social, maybe doing a little color correction, maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind, maybe auto reframing, maybe even adding a little lower third title.
I noticed, and I think this is a new thing because I haven't captioned in a while. It even added proper punctuation. Did you notice that? It added proper punctuation, including when I was done, it added a period. Now, in a world that, you know, especially on social where it's like everything is lowercase and often misspelled or abbreviated and there's generally no punctuation, maybe you don't want that. Maybe that's a drag. So again, I can simply come in here, click on this, and I can edit this if I so desire. Actually, I think you have to go back and, I do it in the Essential Graphics, yeah. So I can edit it if I need to, but that's up to you, right? You can determine what you want to do with that to make those changes to your captions. Okay. So now the other thing that is really useful here when working with captions in Premiere is that, again, now this is the default, which is my least favorite font, and I just can't help myself. I don't like Minion Pro. So what you can do instead, of course, is you can change that and you can customize this to whatever you want. So, you know, whether you want to use something like, Helvetica, for your captions, or you want to use something a little more stylized, Futura. I love Futura. Maybe you want to scale everything up, bigger. You could choose, all the various style types that you want to implement here. By the way, note that I'm doing that on the individual caption block first to kind of showcase that it's only affecting that caption block. If you have the style pack, that'll apply to everything. If you select everything and make that change, it'll apply that to everything. So let's maybe do Futura medium, okay? And let's change the color. So again, we've got our fill appearance here. So let's do, I used to say, let's do Hulu style or Netflix. I don't even think they use the yellow ones anymore, right? I don't think so. Doesn't matter. You can make them whatever color you want. I don't want to make it orange. Something like that. Okay. Again, we could add a stroke if you want. You can add like background bounding box to it if that's your thing. All right, with opacity. So here we can increase the box. We can round the corners of the box. See what that looks like.
Quick tips for prepping your video for social, maybe doing a little color correction, maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind, maybe auto reframing.
Okay. So this is great. And again, at this point, if I wanted to say, you know what, I love the way this looks, I want to use this style again, up under track style, I can now create a track style. All right. Oh, I have them all selected. That's why. So I can create a track style from this, just like that. And I can call it my preferred social. Okay. And now this is something which, if I were to transcribe something else, it'll show up in that captioning menu. I can automatically have that applied when I add the captions. So this is just such a great feature. And again, gives you just a lot of flexibility in terms of captioning. Now, we talked about a couple quick tips. Again, so color correction and sound. So let's tackle that, and then we'll see if we have any time for Express. So, yellow text. Welcome back to sports in the 70s. Okay, Mike. All right. I heard you down there. Here, I'll change it back to white. You're right. I don't actually like the yellow anymore. There's a period when I did, but I don't like it anymore. I don't like 255 either. So there you go. Sound. So let's go to essential sound here. Now, as mentioned, I had already tagged this audio as dialogue. All that means is you select the audio in your sequence, you tap the dialogue button, and then what that's going to do in the essential sound panel is it's going to give you all the effects, or what it does rather, is it gives you a series of effects that would commonly be used to process dialogue. So now if you were to tag this music, it gives you different effect choices. If you were to tag it ambient, it gives you different effect choices. The most available choices are under dialogue. Now there's a lot of things in here, and I've shown them before. There's also a bunch of presets. So we're not going to show any of these. I'm not particularly fond of any of these, but you can, again, check them out. Some of them might work for your, it's all very subjective because it's very dependent on how things are recorded. It just try it if you want. If you don't want to futz around, try preset, all right? But I'm going to show you how to do this manually. So again, now we don't need to deal with anything here. There's no loudness matching because it's not matching to anything else. If you have multiple clips and you're trying to make them all kind of the same apparent loudness, auto match loudness is a great function. Now under repair, we have noise reduction, rumble, dehum, DS, reduce room ambience. That's what reduce reverb is. These are all great. This is a really clean recording, so I don't need to do any of that. There isn't any noise. I'm in a controlled studio. Even though that was just recorded with the iPhone mic, there's no noise in there, so I don't need that. What's nice about these though is that it's a single slider. So if I click and apply and I just drag this slider, that's it. There's no parameter adjustment. I mean, I can show you that in a moment. It's just one slider to do it. That's why it's essential sound. It's like quick and easy. I don't even say quick and dirty because it's still actually applying proper effects at the clip level in the effects controls panel. But what you, the user, sees is just a single slider, okay? So I don't need to repair any of this. The one that I think is the most useful and which I think is the most useful for social. Now, by the way, to all the bathroom social creators, that sounds weird, try reduce reverb. I've shown this on stream a bunch of times. This just takes a bit of the edge off of the very echoey, reflective surfaces often found in a bathroom or kitchen environment. I see TikToks. I'm not a TikTok user, but I see so many that are in the bathroom or in the car where it's very boxy, and the sound is just. So try a little reduce reverb. It may not make magic. It can make magic though. It might just like take you. You'll sound like you're on microphone instead of in the bathroom. It's great, right? So that one I highly recommend. Okay. But the one we're going to focus on here is clarity, which is essentially applying a dynamics processor, i.e. a compressor, which is just going to essentially push the voice a bit more forward, give it a little more presence, a little more thickness, and just make it sound better, right? And a little louder too. So I'm going to turn this on, and as it's playing back, I'm just going to adjust that slider and take a listen to what it's doing.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social. Maybe doing a little color correction, maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind, maybe auto reframing, maybe even adding a little lower third title.
All right. So I'm going to do a quick before and after by sort of paragraph here or line break. So let's start with it off.
Maybe doing a little color correction.
And let's turn it back on.
Maybe doing a little color correction.
Off.
Maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind.
On.
Maybe auto reframing. Maybe even adding a little lower third title.
All right. So it just pushes things forward. It's really clean. It also uses a bit of downward expansion, so it acts kind of like a noise gate. So again, if your audio is already kind of clean, it just really focuses. And actually, you can even see it's kind of grayed by design here. Less compressed, more natural, more focused, i.e. compressed. This is a magical slider. Now, this is actually using machine learning to detect the threshold levels of the dialogue. And what that means is how your voice, you can actually see, for me, again, even on the iPhone, it's very even. You don't see like crazy peaks and things that are kind of out of range here. You may run into those, though, depending upon how things are recorded or the environment you're in. It automatically detects those thresholds, the point at which the compressor needs to kick in, and then does the adjustment for you. Now, as I was mentioning, to you as the user, you just see a single slider here, and you don't have to do any more than that. That's all you need to know. But if you want to make manual adjustments to any effects that are applied here, as I mentioned, it's actually applying the dynamics processing effect in terms of clarity at the clip level to the audio clip portion of this video. So over in effects controls, if you look down in audio, you'll see there it is, dynamics processing. And if we click on edit, now you have access to all of the manual parameters of this effect. And by the way, as you, and you'll see how it's doing a combination of compression and expansion here, just as I mentioned. As you move this slider, again, because it's already dynamically figured out the threshold settings for the spoken voice here, you see that it's changing all of those, the ratios and thresholds as you're adjusting the clarity slider. So this is super cool. This is just great. Now, you never have to go there, by the way. And for that particular effect, actually, I recommend don't. Unless you know what you're doing. That's a hard compressor to use if you are uninitiated in the world of adding audio compression. But as I said, this one slider, I mean, I've used this. I feel a sneeze coming on. Excuse me. I've used that slider in lieu of setting a manual compressor because it's that good. And I'm right. I am an audio snob by all. Yes, 100%. In fact, my Spotify, because I'm a musician and stuff, they do the Spotify Wrapped, and at the end they give you your listening type, and there's like adventurer, and that was one that I saw, and then another one is like loyalist, I think, or something like that. Mine is specialist, and the attributes are you know what you like, and you know what you don't, and when you like something, you go all in, something like that. You listen to an artist all the way through if you really like it, like the sound, like the so true. This is great. You can use this for anything, and I highly recommend the clarity slider. Okay, now the other two things in here, or three, you'll note that there's EQ, enhanced speech, and creative reverb. If you need EQ, again, there's some presets. Give it a try. The best out of all of these. Now, some of them, if you're using for effect, are actually not bad. So there's this like locked in a trunk one. Kind of let you hear what that sounds like. It basically, as you can see, it just kind of rolls off all the highs and mids. Oh, whoops.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social.
Again, as an effect, not bad. There's also like the old time or on the telephone.
Maybe doing a little color correction. Maybe doing a little audio sweetening of
We used to call that the Britney EQ. Old radio.
some kind. Maybe auto reframe.
Intercom.
Maybe even adding a little lower third title.
Those are actually great for sound design purposes. Outside the room, this is another good one.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social.
That one's not quite as good. These subtle boost, public radio, vocal presence, I'm not a fan of any of these. They don't work for my voice in my properly mic'd environments. I've never found a voice that I think these sound good on. Try it if you must. The one that I think is halfway decent is this podcast voice one. And again, all it's really doing is a subtle sort of just below mid-range boost and just above mid-high boost, okay? And kind of just warms it up, beefs it up a little bit.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social. Maybe doing a little color correction. Maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind. Maybe auto reframing. Maybe even adding a little lower third title.
So you can see it's just a little brighter, a little more crispness, a little more detail, some kind of lower mid warmth. Not bad. That tends to work. This enhanced speech thing, good luck. I don't like that at all. I would not recommend using that. It just does weird things. I don't know what it's trying to do. I don't know if it's trying to do like intelligibility enhancement, because if you turn it on, just so you can hear.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social, maybe doing a little color correction, maybe doing a little audio.
So that's with the low tone setting. So it just kind of makes the lows, I don't know, honky to my ear. And then the high tone enhancement.
Just a couple quick tips for prepping your video for social.
It sounds like an iPhone speaker. I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to be. So I don't recommend using that. I'd say at a minimum, if you need EQ, choose one of the presets there. By the way, just as we discussed before, it's actually just applying a graphic equalizer. So if you're feeling brave, you can go to edit and then you can just tweak yourself and go, okay, it needs a little more mid-range, maybe a little bit more highs, maybe roll, if it's too bassy, roll off some of the lows. Oh, it needs a little bit more bass and warmth. Maybe we'll put a little bit of that back in there, something like that, okay? So again, you've got some options there on how you want to use that, or just don't use it at all. Entirely up to you. And then reverb here, this is just kind of putting you in an environment. So again, these are kind of nice for sound design. I don't typically recommend putting any kind of room or reflective sound on something like this. You want them sort of dry. That's the whole point of clarity, is you're sort of making it focused and dry and up front. But if you want, you can try. I'm not going to bother auditioning these here. You get the idea. Okay. All right. So that's essential sound. And then the last thing here, just because I mentioned in the video, maybe applying a little lower third graphic. So again, using our Adobe stock library, which by the way, that issue was resolved. I did in fact find sort of a momentary bug a couple weeks ago, and the team immediately resolved it. So thank you so much to Adobe stock team. If you search on Adobe stock for lower third, we have, thousands of these. Most of these are freebies that I found that I like to use. And you can just drag one of these. Or here, do I have to add it to the project first? I always forget. No, I can just drag it right in. Drag it right in. All right. Click on it to modify it. So I can change my text here. Jason Levine. Live on stream in the studio. Okay, wind this back.
Social, maybe doing a little color correction, maybe doing a little audio sweetening of some kind,
reverb on there,
maybe auto reframing. Maybe
here, let's put this right where I talk about that.
Auto reframing. Maybe even adding a little lower third title.
All right. Simple lower third implementation. Again, that's just by browsing via Adobe stock. I already had licensed that one to my library, and then you can just click and drag it right into the timeline. Real simple. And you can change the color. I mean, again, there's lots of, editability options. This is a really simple one. By the way, this one is also responsive, so it'll adjust the timing based on how you drag it out, which is nice. Okay, you can see that it has responsive design positioning implemented here. So you could do any of those things. Now, again, going back to essential sound, I inadvertently turned on reverb. Yeah, let's turn that off.
Maybe even adding a little lower third title.
Okay. Really simple, right? Okay. All right, so we've got about 2 minutes here. Let's see, let me go to my camera and see how Express is doing. If I can fire up the quick action here. Okay. It's loading, but it's looking a little chunky. I don't know. Yeah, probably best not to mess with that now. Okay. Well, hopefully that issue will be resolved shortly and should not be an issue. Okay. All right, my friends. Well, that is all the time we have for today. So there you have it. A couple of quick tips to showcase how to create your videos for social. Talked about direct import, creating the sequence regardless of what frame size or aspect ratio you're making. Do it via the new import dialog. It's going to handle all the settings for you. From there, of course, you can go into the export dialog and it'll choose the proper preset. I recommend, again, match source, for maintaining high quality and, again, respecting aspect ratio, frame size, all those things. Talked about how you can modify bit rates on the video stream itself. And if you're not going 4K, probably keep it under 10 megabits, right? And audio bit rate, same thing there. Really, always keep it 256 kilobits for audio. No reason to go any lower. Not a lot of reason to go any higher either, but that's up to you. All right, then we showed how to auto-transcribe using the new text panel in Premiere Pro, auto-reframing in Premiere Pro, modifying the text, and then using Essential Sound and Essential Graphics to do some audio sweetening and adding lower third titles. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.